Hello and welcome to another episode of Chuchu is a Ranker. On this episode we're going to be continuing our albums of the year list. This time it's 1986. So 86 was an absolutely fantastic year, one of the best years of music history, along with 84. Just the depth of this year is absolutely insane. I had to leave off so many classic records, and the top 5 records on this list were incredibly difficult to rank in order for me. I kept flip-flopping between them because they all deserve to be number one. Great year. So without further ado, let's be complete rankers and rank up a storm. These are my personal top 10 albums of 1986. So we're going to be kicking off this incredibly stacked list with The Bridge by Billy Joel. So this is very much a personal pick because this record isn't really critically acclaimed. In fact, it's seen kind of as the black sheep amongst Billy Joel's discography. But yeah, I really like it. I think this is a really great 1980s pop record filled with absolutely fantastic songs. Running on Ice, fantastic opener. This Is the Time, A Matter of Trust, brilliant singles. Modern Woman, so catchy. Big Man on Mulberry Street with its faux jazz setup, like really cool. Code of Silence, the duet with Cyndi Lauper, super catchy. So yeah, just tons of really great sort of mid-80s pop songs on this. This record also has like tons of variety in its soundscape. So yeah, it's a kind of really dynamic and interesting record for me. Great stuff from Billy Joel. I know what you're thinking, jumping from Billy Joel to Slayer, that's a hell of a transition, and yes it is, but then again, variety is the spice of life, my friend. I'm not a huge metalhead, but sometimes I really do enjoy that kind of like energy that you can only get from a truly heavy record. 1986 was a huge year for the genre of thrash metal, and lots of the genre's masterpieces were released in this year, and for me it came down to 2 records. It was either going to be Peace Sells But Who's Buying by Megadeth and Rain in Blood by Slayer. Obviously I've gone with Slayer. This record's best aspect is its brevity. It's only 28 minutes, so you get all the things that you want from thrash metal: the relentless blast beats, the insane guitar riffs, the screamed vocals, the lyrics about ripping people's arms off or pulling their guts out or descending into the bowels of hell, you know, all that kind of horrific violent imagery that would, you know, horrify your grandmother. Like you get all that fun good stuff just in a bite-sized format. Like if this record was 50 minutes or whatever, like I don't think I could go 50 minutes with this type of music, but 28, yeah, flies by. Not a bad song on this record. Angel of Death, great opener. Jesus Saves, tons of fun. Raining Blood, fantastic closer. And everything else in between is just a high energy, balls to the wall, just flat out scare your neighbors. Yeah, great stuff. Next up, we have License to Ill, which was the debut album by the Beach Boys. Did I just say the Beach Boys? The Beastie Boys, you dumb fuck. Oh man, Brian Wilson's probably turning in his grave. Oh, is he dead? I'm not sure. Anyway, I'm getting off point here. Anyway, this is the debut album by the Beastie Boys. A really influential hardcore rap album. A couple years prior, Run DMC had actually set up the genre of hardcore metal, but kind of in a tame way. Here the Beastie Boys take what Run DMC did and just add like tons of like punk energy and make it like truly hardcore. This is a much more aggressive hip-hop album than I think had ever been heard before. So yeah, again, trend-setting, very influential record, and absolutely fantastic as well. Got some really awesome heavy crunching guitars on this, especially on Fight for Your Right and No Sleep Till Brooklyn, which are the album's kind of centerpiece songs, the most famous songs and also best songs off this record. Guaranteed to have any party you have just like totally fired up, like completely awesome songs. But also, yeah, the opening, Rhyming and Stealing, just immediately in there with that aggressive style. She's Crafty, great guitar on that as well, really catchy. The closing track, Time to Get Ill, yeah, super fun. Like, yeah, this whole record just thrums with that kind of like 80s hip-hop energy, everything you want from a hip-hop album. Not a bad song on here. I think the lyrics are really puerile, juvenile, like frat house bullshit, but that's also part of the fun. Yeah, great stuff by the Beastie Boys. Next up, we have the almost mandatory Iron Maiden entry into the list with Somewhere in Time. On this record, Iron Maiden have kind of developed a more metallic sounding guitar tone, I think trying to fit in with their thrash metal competition a bit more. They also incorporate synths on this record for the first time, and at this time in the history of metal, synths were a very contentious thing. Metal fans just did not want overt synths in their music, but Iron Maiden do it with a lot of subtlety, unlike Judas Priest, who, you know, focused on the synths a bit too much and fired off a misstep with their album Turbo in 1986. Poor Judas Priest. But yeah, here, as I say, Iron Maiden doing it with a lot more subtlety, so metal fans were, yeah, pretty pleased with the results. Fantastic songs across the board on this record. The opener, Caught Somewhere in Time, has one of my favourite guitar solos ever. Love those dives on that track, absolutely amazing. Wasted Years, that opening riff, the da 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 da, you know how it goes. Like, yeah, absolutely brilliant guitar riff, one of the greatest guitar riffs of all time. I love it. Heaven Can Wait, really anthemic, like, love that sing-along chorus. Stranger in a Strange Land, absolutely fantastic. And the closing track, Alexander the Great, fantastic guitar riffs, one of Iron Maiden's best epics, just absolutely delicious, fantastic stuff on this record, and more phenomenal metal from Iron Maiden. Sticking with the metal, for number 6 we have Master of Puppets by Metallica. Metallica's best record, their masterpiece, and coming outside the top 5 here. Wow, metal fans are going to be real upset about that one. I'm sorry, it's subjective. It's subjective. You want to put Metallica at number 1, go ahead. I don't blame you. I love this record. Yeah, plenty of fantastic stuff on here. Battery, the opening song, love the kind of clean guitar opening to that. Then you have the title track, Master of Puppets. Master! Absolutely brilliant stuff. Orion, probably the greatest Metallica instrumental of all time. Really melodic, really cool. Damage Inc., fantastic way to close the record. If you don't know what Metallica sounds like, first they go really fast and then they slow down like this and get really heavy. But yeah, great stuff. If you like metal and you haven't heard Master of Puppets by Metallica, I didn't even know how to finish that sentence. What are you doing with your life if you like metal and you haven't heard this record? Of course you have. If you don't like metal and you haven't heard this record, go check it out anyway. It's absolutely fantastic. One of the best metal records you'll ever hear in your life. Brilliant, brilliant stuff by Metallica here. So we're kicking off the top half of this list with Life's Rich Pageant by R.E.M. On this record, R.E.M. are definitely leaning in a more pop direction. On the previous records, Michael Stipe kind of lacked confidence with his voice and kind of buried it deep into the mix. Here, his voice is taken out and pushed to the forefront, and that combined with R.E.M.'s more kind of pop-leaning songwriting definitely makes this one of the most accessible and catchy records that R.E.M. ever made. Absolutely fantastic, just stocked with great songs, not a bad song on here, and plenty of classics. Kicking off with the stuttering guitars of Begin the Begin, fantastic stuff. You have These Days and Hyena, really fantastic jangle punk songs. Fall on Me, Johnny Marr once said this is his favourite R.E.M. song, and I see why. It totally sounds like the Smiths. Really awesome ballad. Cuyahoga, really meaningful lyrics, an absolute R.E.M. standard. I Believe, brilliant jangle punk song, one of my favourite R.E.M. songs of all time. Love that banjo opening, super catchy. Yeah, there's just basically no bad songs on here. Underneath the Bunker, fantastic. The Flowers of Guatemala, love the melodies on that. Swan Swan H and I Am Superman, a duo of fantastic closers. I Am Superman finishing with a single, wonderful stuff. So basically, Life's Rich Pageant, absolutely fantastic. One of R.E.M's very best records, and if you haven't heard it, you're missing out. Go check it out, it's awesome. Next up, we have Black Celebration by Depeche Mode. So this is an album of gothic synth pop, and the first album where Depeche Mode properly commits to that kind of gothic aspect which would define their sound and image going forward. Absolutely fantastic record, not a bad song on here. I love the production on this album. Everything is really crystal clear and you can hear every single note that's ever played on this record. Fantastic stuff. Kicks off, of course, with Black Celebration. I can't stop singing that song. It's so fucking catchy. Yeah, Fly on the Windscreen. Awesome follow-up. It's a Question of Lust. Like, really catchy, as is its sister song, A Question of Time. Stripped. Another fantastic song. The record concludes with Dressed in Black and New Dress, like fantastic duo of closing tracks, brilliant stuff. My favorite song off the album, of course, is the beautiful piano ballad Sometimes. Absolutely love that. It reminds me of like the shorter Smith songs like Please 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 Let Me Get What I Want. Brilliant stuff. This is just a fantastic record, start to finish, and one of Depeche Mode's best records. So, coming in third place and taking home the bronze medal, we have The Queen Is Dead by the Smiths, a record which I have a love-hate relationship with. I love it because, well, it's absolutely brilliant. It's one of the greatest jangle records of all time, and I absolutely loved it when I was a teenager. I hate it because everybody says it's the best Smiths record, and it's not, and I played it to death when I was a teenager, and some of the songs on here, like Big Mouth Strikes Again, or There Is a Light That Never Goes Out, to be honest, I'd be happy if I never heard those again in my entire life, because they are overplayed. If I ever owned a cassette of this record, it'd be frazzled, fried, played out, dead. Familiarity breeds contempt, as they say, and I'm really overly familiar with this record, but therein lies a kernel of the truth of the matter. The fact is that, as I said, as a teenager, I adored this record. I fawned over this record. This was hugely influential for me. You know, I was a huge Smiths fan. I had the quiff and the beads and everything, and you know, everybody was into like Oasis or whatever when I was in college, and I was the weirdo that was into the Smiths. This record was a big part of that. So yeah, this record is just wall-to-wall good songs, although I do think some of the Smiths' weaker songs are on this, namely Never Had No One Ever and Some Girls Are Bigger Than Others. That said, they're still good songs because the Smiths didn't make bad songs, but I do think those would rank amongst the least good of the Smiths, I would say. Anyway, fantastic stuff on here. The Queen Is Dead, the opening track, really awesome. Love the wah-wah guitar on that. Frankly, Mr. Shankly, really catchy, channeling the Kinks, and that's another aspect which is really weird for me because my two favourite bands of all time, the Smiths and the Kinks, and you have one of my favourite bands, the Smiths, channeling the other one, the Kinks. Weird! And they do that again on Cemetery Gates. Really cool. Really love the lyrics on that. Like, yeah, fantastic stuff. Like, drove me into reading classic literature when I was a kid. Thank you very much, Morrissey. I Know It's Over. Really fantastic, really emotional. Absolutely love that. There Is a Light That Never Goes Out. It's really awesome. Yes, I said it. There you go. Have it. Go and have your biscuits. The Boy with the Thorn in His Side, one of my favourite Smith songs, just really catchy, really fantastic. I personally love Vickers of Tutu. Queen Is Dead is a masterpiece, okay? Are you happy now? Are you satisfied? It's a masterpiece. I relent. Ah! Humbug! Taking home the silver medal, we have The Colour of Spring by Talk Talk. This is Talk Talk's third album, and this is Talk Talk at about 95% power. Of course, the next couple of albums would be the band's true masterpieces, but if Spirit of Eden is the band's OK Computer, and The Laughingstock is the band's Kid A, then The Colour of Spring is the band's The Bends, and of course The Bends by Radiohead is a record with much to recommend about it, as is The Colour of Spring. It's absolutely fantastic. It's got one foot in the post-rock direction that the band would spring off into on the next couple of releases, but they also still have one foot firmly planted in delivering, immediate catchy pop music. So if you're new to Talk Talk, this is absolutely the place probably you should start and, ease yourself into the masterpieces. Yeah. The pop song's absolutely fantastic. The opening track, Happiness is Easy, brilliant. I don't believe in you, just super catchy. Life's What You Make It, the biggest hit off of this, with its booming, relentless drums, absolutely fantastic. Living in Another World, brilliant. Yeah, pop songs, absolutely fantastic on this, but of course, it's the more post-rock elements that are the really memorable things here. Well, that's not true actually, the pop songs are incredibly memorable, but the most impressive things here, I think, are the post-rock songs. April 5th, love that song. It just delves into Mark Hollis's philosophy completely, that kind of post-rock philosophy that he has of making every note count, and yeah, the quietness here, brilliant. Just properly setting up the next masterpiece, Spirit of Eden on April 5th, brilliant stuff. Chameleon Day, again, same thing, setting up that post-rock direction that they would spin off into. Awesome stuff, and that leads into the best track on the album, which is the closing track, Time It's Time, one of my favourite songs of all time, one of the greatest closing tracks on any album ever. It's so powerful, so beautiful that it often makes me cry. And that's quite a rare thing, to a song to be so phenomenally gorgeous that it makes me cry, but Time It's Time does that. Why is this not number one? How can this record not be number one? I'll tell you why, because it has a song called Give It Up on it, and that's just, a kind of more standard pop song. If that song wasn't, ignorable fluff or just wasn't on the record at all, this would be number one. It would be number one. But as it is, it's going to take the silver medal, which is not a bad catch at all. And this record is an absolute fucking masterpiece. I love it so much. Go check it out. Here we are at the top of the mountain, and the gold medal is going to go to Skylarking by XTC. So this is XTC's best record, and yeah, it's an absolute fucking masterpiece. So on a previous entry in 1982, I was complaining about XTC's album English Settlement, in that it didn't sound as British as I wanted it to. But here, on this record, Skylarking, they've rectified that. This is a completely British sounding album. They are totally channeling the Kinks on this one. Love the clean, warm, acoustic, arpeggiated picking sound that they have on this record. It's really cool, and it just sounds like you've been packed off on a day trip to an English forest. You stopped at the really cute stone village, and you've got your postcard, and you've eaten your scone and jam, and you've drank your cup of tea, and now you're off for a ramble in the forest with Andy Partridge and Colin Moulding. Yeah, absolutely fantastic record. Not a bad song on this record, and this has kind of an almost prog element to it, like a jangle prog element, where the songs kind of segue into each other, and there's a really awesome flow to this album, and it just feels like one conceptual piece. Brilliant stuff. As for individual songs, as I said, it's more of a conceptual piece, so I don't really feel like I should get into individual songs, but I will point out a couple of highlights. Opener, Summer's Cauldron, brilliant, with its chirping birds in the intro, really sets the scene. Grass, fantastic. The Meeting Place, really, really catchy. Ballet for a Rainy Day, I love the melodies on that, super catchy, and that segues into 1000 Umbrellas, which is just awesome. Big Day, with its wedding bells and stuff, really atmospheric. Sacrificial Bonfire, love that. That was the closer on the original album, but the band released the single Dear God, which became a big hit, and they have actually added that to the back end, so that is now the closing track on the versions that you get these days, and well, thank God for that, because Dear God is an absolute masterpiece of a pop song. Really love that as the closer. Yeah, this record is just phenomenal. 15 tracks of just jangle pop brilliance. Like, if you haven't heard this, just drop what you're doing and go check it out, especially if you like bands like the Smiths. Like, this is a fucking no-brainer if you haven't heard that and you like the Smiths. And there you go, that is my list for 1986. But hey, that's not your list. I'm sure your list is completely different. Please sound off in the comments section and tell me all the records that I'm missing. I'm not superhuman. I haven't listened to every record from 1986, nor has any human on the face of the earth. So yeah, you're well within your rights to recommend a few classics. Like, share, subscribe, and all that other kind of YouTube jazz. Check back for my 1987 list. But most importantly, just keep on ranking.